Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I, man, here from the Block Runner MetaZone, Roby and MScribe, and today we're going to be talking about Runes Finance.
Runesfi. We're going to talk about memes, and yeah, just runes in general. We haven't really kind of like done a deep dive on runes since its inception point, really, or the pre-runes era.
Yeah.
But runes are starting to cook.
Yeah.
Interesting signs of life are emerging. It's not like going to just completely degenerate into nothingness.
And the petri dish is like a little germination happening.
Exactly. I'm glad you're bringing biology back, dude. Biology is all the jazz. But nonetheless, so it's like, dude, you know, we spent a lot of time analyzing BRC20s. You know, we gave BRC20 a chance to demonstrate viability, you know, innovative potential, yada, 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 right?
We single-handedly sent it to $1 billion off of one video.
We did?
We did.
BRC20s?
Yeah, that's what the charts tell me, dude.
Oh, okay. I guess. So, I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting run, interesting time. Since then, unfortunately, the protocol hasn't really evolved into much based on market evidence and such. But that doesn't mean it's out also, right? It can come back. So right now the conversation, though, is memes are obviously a viral happening in Web3.
Yeah.
And the Runes protocol is perfectly designed to kind of like capture some of that momentum as well.
Right.
So let's talk about that. But eventually we want to spill into the conversation of like, is that it? Really?
Right.
Are we just going to talk about memes forever?
By the way, TJ, I have a black screen on there. I don't know if it's like on my side or.
All right.
Okay. But yeah, let's continue with the thought here. So we're looking at Magic Eden. There it is. I see it now. We're looking at Magic Eden.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the top 100 runes. Dog go to moon. We got Fihu. Arsik.
Don't forget the
Right. Arsik. We got Pups. Epics. Decentralized. And decentralized.
Yeah.
And then this one.
Something interesting, right? It's popping into our radar, but we're not going to talk about that yet. Let's just.
Yeah.
So right now, why not talk about that yet? Because I don't think the broader space, for one, is looking for anything outside of memes.
Oh, they're looking for staying ahead, dude. So the smart ones are looking for that.
Really, what you all are looking for is like opportunity, right? If we're all being honest with ourselves,
For entertainment, yes.
entertainment opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So memes are very entertaining for now, but if you understand like the game and how it's played, you want to position yourself into things, market verticals where nobody's talking about them, right?
Okay,
like,
Bill Belichick.
What? I don't think I've ever heard Bill Belichick chime in on like crypto.
Well, he's got
Degenomics.
He's got a good like plan, a strategy.
Good sense for things. Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm the Bill Belichick of crypto.
That's
Thanks,
right.
dude. I appreciate that. Appreciate that nod. But so yeah, right now we're talking about memes because you know if you go through the surface level of what Runes provides, they're a bunch of memes.
Yes.
Right?
Damn, I just noticed 2.8 billion market cap, dude.
Whatever, dude.
Wow, that's quite impressive.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Leonidas quoting our fearless leader, Rotomore.
Yeah, the creator of Runes, right? So
I
what
should
is
play
he
this, right?
I think you should play this just so we can kind of like understand.
Yeah.
99.99% of the projects at this conference are complete and utter bullshit. They have some fancy white paper. They make all these crazy claims, right? And their purpose, if we ignore, you know, what they are trying to do, glad that that's sort of known. But, you know, their purpose is really to print a token and dump it on retail investors.
Ouch.
Yikes. I mean, what happens when you go public, man? When you take a stock public?
You're hoping the number goes up, right? So that your company has like...
Yeah, but where's that liquidity coming from?
The public.
Right. Huh.
The investors. Yeah, you get the opportunity to play the casino, dude. The well-oiled, well-regulated version of of what it is we're doing here, right? So what's the harm in that?
I don't...
But I don't think 99.99% of companies, not projects, that are IPOing under the proper like regulated frameworks are bullshit.
No.
I think at some point they were, hence like once the regulatory parameters came in.
No,
and,
because
like,
the game in like Web 2 was to like actually solve problems, right? It's like you see a problem in the market, you do a solution, and now you have electric cars that drive themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But in crypto, it's not that. And so that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, but specifically like the whole grant. So this was a clip, right, from a keynote, I guess, address
At Consensus.
At Consensus, a major, conference where titans of the industry of Web3 come together and, pitch their visions and do what they do, right?
Yeah.
They rub shoulders, like, dude, we're gonna change the world. We're
Yeah.
gonna become billionaires as a result. Then Casey Rodimer comes in here, like, you're all a bunch of fucking frauds, like, publicly, right?
Yeah.
So is he right? Is he wrong? I mean, if you go to the data, let's look at Willy Woo, a respected thought leader in this space, right?
Yeah, it says thread on altcoins. They are nuanced. We have protocol coins, utility tokens, security tokens, and non-fungible tokens.
Keep in mind, this is 2019.
Yeah, so but to an investor, there's only two types of altcoins, oscillators and degenerators.
Cool.
You can spot them on this chart on the entire market.
Yeah, so this is like, just look at this graphic. It's kind of enough. Like, here's Bitcoin, right? That black line?
Yep.
That's an example of an oscillator?
Yes, it's definitely an oscillator.
Definitely is.
Yeah.
And then everything else is a degenerator. They're all headed towards that red line of death, it looks like. Absolute zero. So what does this all mean, dude? Does it mean, like, we only should be buying Bitcoin or what?
Yeah, I mean, this is... I sort of, like, intuitively could see... Like, if you look at all the charts, like, I remember looking at the post-mortem of 2017, and you looked at everything that went ham.
Yeah.
Right, and then you go look back at it today. It's like it went ham, and then it just
kept going down.
Yeah, evaporated. Right.
It literally looks like flatline.
Yeah,
like,
flatline.
No life left.
Yeah, the heartbeat is just took one beat, and then that was it.
Yeah, an explosive. Like, here I am, and then it just topples over. It just wilts into nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you compare that, that's what most common you go look at a random token. That's what it generally looks like. It has that one beat and goes down. But then you look at Bitcoin, and it doesn't do that.
Right.
And so you intuitively kind of pick this up that there's oscillators.
Well, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You want to identify what are the oscillators in this like broader crypto market. So there are some others out there beyond just Bitcoin, right? Dogecoin, I think is what he uses as like, there it is. It's Doge.
Yeah.
Doge is another good example of an oscillator.
So I'm looking at max here and a log, and then this is a perfect example of an oscillator.
That looks like a living thing, right? There's a real sustained pulse there.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it's in the process of wilting anytime soon, dude. Right?
No, and this what it shows is like a number of like people onboarding every cycle. Right? These are the peaks of the cycles here.
Yeah, this is one of the more beautiful looking representations of crypto life as what we've seen, right? So why are we talking about Doge? What does that have to do with ordinals or runes or anything? I mean, it's simply a recognition of the meme viability, right?
Right.
As much as like we or others like to kind of like scoff at it because it is stupid, objectively. But so what?
Yeah,
stupidity has life in its of its own right. It's okay.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's a difference between organic memes like a Doge and like forced memes, right? And so forced memes just like I don't know.
Okay, hold on. Maybe not.
Maybe not,
because forced implies like architected, right? Or like created, like you created this ticker, this token with the intent of it becoming a meme.
Well, forced in the sense that once you stop talking about it, like it would just wither away, right? Like Doge doesn't need that. Like it doesn't need Elon talking about Doge every single tweet. It doesn't need it.
Yeah, it's true. That is interesting. So this is going to be an interesting. So we're assuming and projecting memes are going to play a critical part of this upcoming market cycle, the bullish side of it. And so the big experiment here is, obviously Dogecoin is an oscillator. It has proven itself as have sustained viability.
Yeah.
So now, as a result, that was organic.
Yeah.
Now we have an industry of inorganic meme attempts, right? Where there are
Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, there's central maintainers of the meme, right? Like where if they go offline, then
exactly,
life is gone. So
imagine the Iggy Azalea meme coin. Like as soon as she stops tweeting about it, she's on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Is that going to continue gathering people? No.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. But this is a good trial and experiment. Like we actually need this in crypto. Like we need a cycle where we get to
Sure. This is the experiment is happening.
Yeah, it's like
right.
Okay, so the experiment of Doge, which nobody intended it to be that experiment, but it is a data point, and it has like a whole market sector as a result, and it's viable, right? There's data to suggest that it's as viable as Bitcoin in the market sense. So yeah, let's throw in these inorganic attempts where again, and let's see a cycle or two from now whether they can replicate that same oscillation.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. Why not? Just out of pure
for the science,
crypto science.
Yeah.
And market analysis. So.
Okay, so check out this analysis by Mark Jeffrey. So also impressive, NUSD, a stablecoin implemented directly on Bitcoin itself as both a BRC20 and a Rune. NUSD is backed 1-to-1 by Athena USDE, so it's a tether for Athena on Bitcoin.
So we're talking about let's go back to that Magic Eden list.
Here we go.
Just so people know what we just kind of like pivoted to. Number 7.
Number 7 here.
All right. It's kind of like
50 million market cap.
Pretty significant.
Yeah.
So here we are. So we're done talking about memes because like, you know us, we want to find something a little more interesting, something like standing on its own. So here it is.
Yeah, and so the most interesting line here that sort of like raised my eyebrows was like, but unlike Tether or USDC, you can actually see how much USDE backing NUSD has at any given moment, which is interesting because I think USDC and USDT should be doing this. I don't know why they don't do it, but...
Well, let's contextualize stablecoins first of all, because we kind of jumped into this without any context. Like, why care about a stablecoin? Why is that important?
Stablecoins is kind of like a foundational aspect of crypto that helps propagate, helps push out the entire narrative of crypto. Like it's a primitive, essentially.
Definitely is a primitive. If you go back, so 2017 cycle, they started to emerge, right? Tether. And it was like
super sketch at that time.
Super sketch. Nobody knew exactly like this because the reserves were not like transparent.
Still not transparent.
Still. But back then, I mean, new thing, not transparent.
Yeah, exactly.
And like a large segment of the market was depending on this tool, right?
Rug pull, like
yeah, it was
salivating right there.
It was like the main architecture of like potential Armageddon, right?
Yeah.
If this thing gets too big, because you could just like manifest these tethers out of thin air.
Yeah.
And it seemed like every time that happened, prices of everything else just kind of went up.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's going on here? But nonetheless, it persisted, and then into the 2021 cycle with DeFi, it's like let's try and create these things that a little bit more decentralized fashion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So MakerDAO happened and DAI. Very successful. Largely responsible for catalyzing a lot of like the early days of DeFi activity, right? Because you need stability, true stability, in order to like build any like composable yield generation mechanism on top of that.
Yeah, and they're still around, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, talk about oscillators, dude.
Yeah. and so yeah, we're here talking about like the applicability of a stablecoin on Bitcoin would be a huge thing.
Yeah.
Because now you don't need to go to like a centralized exchange to exit out of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's just like swap out to USDC or whatever.
Right.
On Coinbase or
you can't do that anywhere besides an exchange.
Or USDT on Binance or Binance probably has its own stablecoin too. So
it does.
Yeah.
BUSD, yeah.
Yeah, so those are centralized means of basically exiting your position and having like a safe haven in market turmoil, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah. So very needed, right?
Very needed.
Extremely needed. But it hasn't really been like a thing native to Bitcoin as of yet. So just off of that narrative alone and like the understanding of how big that need is, it's interesting to see a Runes token like even trying,
Yeah. So hold NUSD in your wallet, and every block you're automatically accruing
BAMK.
BAMK.
I don't know how to say that. BAMK? Yeah, I think you said it right.
No staking needed. So basically, hold this asset, and then you're accruing this asset.
Yeah.
So like a yield generating asset, like that's what you would expect. But in this case, you're not interacting with smart contracts.
I wonder why they want you to hold that asset. Is it just like not It's to incentivize not introducing too much market turmoil to like
Probably
keep that peg stable.
Yeah, and it's going to be running for like 40,000 blocks, which is about 260 days.
That's the emission schedule.
Yeah,
200. So basically a year.
about a year. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's a nice little like beta phase just to keep things like, you know, artificially in a sense like
stable.
God. And then once there's no longer an incentive, it's like, all right, you're free to like, you know, operate with this stable coin.
Yeah,
however you want.
that's right.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like kind of like kickstarting an ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I like it so far.
but we've seen something like this before.
Yeah.
To a small extent, is that we're excited to announce the DuCap protocol, the first Bitcoin L1 native stablecoin on Runes.
Yeah.
This was also something that piqued our interest when we first saw this about 2 months ago.
Yeah. So again, obviously we've known stablecoins, huge sector of importance, and it's going to be difficult to pull off though.
This is what gives like the Ordinals ecosystem, Runes, and all that like its real foundational staying power.
Yeah, and a proof of concept that, you know, it's not just Ethereum. Well, that's the goal, right? Is like you could prove, you could implement some sort of enough functionality in the absence of Ethereum smart contracts native to Bitcoin layer 1 where you can execute on these different like DeFi primitives. But
yeah.
So if we go back to BAMK here, they do something very specific, right? They're leveraging an already existing like infrastructure on Ethereum.
Yeah, let me see if I can find this.
I don't think it's there. It's in the next tweets. Here it is. All right, so just to kind of like wrap your head around like the scope of this market, Tether obviously is like the biggest beast of them all.
Yeah.
But Athena is the one we're talking about here, the blue circle.
Yeah, Athena's a $3 billion, and then NAKAMOTO dollar.
Roughly 50 million as of today.
Yeah.
So what is Athena? Let's take a look at that.
All right. So Athena overview. So here it is. Athena is a synthetic dollar protocol built on Ethereum that provides a crypto-native solution for money not relying on traditional banking system infrastructure alongside a globally accessible dollar-denominated instrument, the Internet Bond. So Athena's USDE is not the same as a fiat stable like USDC or USDT. USDE is a synthetic dollar backed with crypto assets and corresponding short futures positions.
That sounds complicated. That sounds very experimental. We've seen these before, right? Like an experimental stable coin.
Yeah,
with like Terra Luna and such.
Yeah, that was like an algorithm-based stablecoin.
Yeah, that was like a whole experiment, vertical of experimentation. It was like, you know, can we achieve?
Yeah, so this is not the same as an algorithm-based because it's still backed by crypto assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, most likely. And then it's also supported by short futures positions. So if it goes any one direction, you can sort of like hedge.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So we're gonna have to do some deeper research to understand like the internal mechanics of that.
Yeah, but I remember MakerDAO when that FTX collapsed, 3 arrows, like the huge volatility in crypto.
Yeah,
they struggled to maintain stability of DAI.
They did.
I mean, even USDC struggled. Remember?
That's right. It was a
bank collapse.
It was a real collapse. Like the whole infrastructure of all of this was
quite scary.
Teetering on the edge. Yeah, it was a serious moment for sure. But I mean, just add a new wrinkle of
yeah. So basically, if these crypto assets become extremely volatile, like during the beginnings of or the peak of the bull, they become extremely volatile, then you could see USDE sort of destabilize a little bit. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, but as of right now, how's it doing?
So USDE is now the fastest USD asset to reach 3 billion in crypto history. So we're looking at USDT. Timeline took a long time because they were the first ones.
Yeah.
Then came USDC. It was faster because they already had like a predecessor. DAI, you have FUSD, UST. That's Tether, right? I mean Tether, Terra.
I think so.
Yeah. And then USDE is fastest.
So this is it. The new stablecoin mechanism is in town, dude.
Yeah.
And it's churning away. It's turning heads. It's rapidly becoming a core primitive in Ethereum DeFi specifically. But why are we talking about Ethereum DeFi? Well, it seems to be a trend with like these Bitcoin projects. Like if you're gonna do anything that requires functionalities, like you're gonna have to leverage some part of the EVM core, like
use
infrastructure.
Ethereum as the test net, as they say.
Well, yeah. So it's like Ethereum's over there because it has built-in functionality. Bitcoin is still like in its nascent stages where we're still figuring out meta protocol logistics of how to like, we could do this without the aid of Ethereum. But in the meantime, let's peg everything that we're kind of like journeying with here in the Rune space to the value that's being accrued on Ethereum. These like new mechanisms. What do you see? Is this good news, bad news?
I feel like this has some potential, has some legs. But we're going to take a deeper dive to understand a little bit more like how all this is happening.
Yeah.
If you guys have seen anything that we should take a look at, let us know in the comment section below. If you have any questions, let us know as well. Yeah,
we're reaching out to get interviews as well so we can have some more clarity and all this design and
so there's a chance we might be talking to these guys, so
hopefully
stay tuned. All right guys, that's it for the video. Appreciate you guys for watching, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.